Conquer the Sky, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Zay, collectively known as SoCal Uncensored or
SCU! This is Catch, Hook, and Shoot, the worst podcast I've ever been on. Word.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Catch, Hook, and Shoot. Today is Sunday, May the 17th, 2020. I want to thank everybody for watching, listening, and subscribing on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcast from. Thank you also for following on social media. It's at Catch, Hook, Shoot on all social media platforms. Head to patreon.com/CatchHookShoot for bonus content and ProWrestlingTees.com/CatchHookShoot for all your t-shirt needs. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's CatchHookShoot@gmail.com. So let's start everything off this week like we always do, looking at my favorite match from the past week, and that segment is called the Match of the Week. So this week's Match of the Week comes from NXT this past Wednesday, and that match was Matt Riddle versus Timothy Thatcher. Now, of course, they went into NXT as the tag team champions. Thatcher was replacing Pete Dunne as Riddle's partner due to the travel restrictions. Dunne not able to leave the UK. But yeah, we'll get into how this match came about a little bit later on. But yeah, the main event of the show, Matt Riddle versus Timothy Thatcher. Fantastic just wrestling match between these two guys. Riddle, of course, with the MMA background. Timothy Thatcher, just known as one of the kind of a Minoru Suzuki style wrestler, just submission specialist and just very no nonsense, hard hitting type of guy. And these two put on a fantastic match on NXT. So like I always say, if you only check out one wrestling match this week, make it Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher from NXT this past Wednesday, you will definitely not be disappointed. So moving right along into the next segment of the show is my top 3 highlights from the week, and I call that the 3 count. So first up on the 3 count this week, I have to talk about the Undertaker documentary that's been airing on WWE Network, and that is called The Last Ride. Really an unprecedented look behind the curtain at the man behind the Undertaker, Mark Calloway. Not the kind of thing we've ever seen from him before. He's never let the cameras follow him around like that, just kind of documenting the behind-the-scenes part of his career. And, if you're an Undertaker fan like I am, I think everybody knows by now, I'm a diehard Undertaker fan. It's just a really, really fascinating thing to watch, to hear him talking about his family and just, talking about, like, his his doubts and his insecurities and stuff like that, at this point in his career, about his age, about, can his body continue to hold up and things like that. And it's just a really, really cool thing to see. So I definitely recommend anybody, if you're an Undertaker fan, this is a must watch. The first 2 parts are out on WWE Network already. They're going to be, I believe it's a 5-part show, so there's still 3 more to come over the next 3 weeks. And like I said, if you're an Undertaker fan, definitely take the time to check it out, because it's an awesome look at the man behind the character. Number 2 on the 3 count this week is Dark Side of the Ring from this past week. Was covering the Road Warriors, and Road Warriors, my favorite tag team of all time, and this is just a really cool look at their career, the tragedy of losing Road Warrior Hawk, Michael Hegstrand, and things like that. And just Dark Side of the Ring in general is just an awesome show. So if you're a wrestling fan, it's again a must see. So I definitely recommend anybody go, if you've never seen Dark Side of the Ring, go back and watch every single episode from season 1 through season 2. Next week is their season finale, and it's covering Owen Hart, so that is definitely one that I think a lot of people are going to be tuning into, because it's a subject that has really never been covered in depth, at least not by WWE, because I believe they're prevented from doing anything like that about Owen Hart, because of his widow and things like that. But this will be an interesting look into the last days of Owen Hart. And number 3 on the 3 count is the big announcement that was made on Monday Night Raw this past week by Becky Lynch, that she has vacated the Women's Championship and is going off to start a family. Her and Seth Rollins expecting their first child towards the end of the year. So big congratulations to them. I know it was a very, very emotional time for Becky. I mean, obviously she's happy about becoming a mother, but also, I'm sure disappointed that she had to give up the title and, kind of not walk away from her career, but, step away from the ring for a good amount of time. I mean, I wouldn't expect to see her back for at least a year. I'm sure definitely very, very emotional for her and for Seth, but I'm very confident that the good emotions outweigh the bad in this situation. Speaking as a parent, it's the greatest thing in the world. So big, huge congratulations to Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. So getting into news and rumors for the week, with Becky vacating the title to go start a family, that basically the way that it worked out is that the Money in the Bank match from the previous night, from last Sunday, unbeknownst to anyone involved in the match or anyone watching the match, was for the Raw Women's Championship. So that match was won by Asuka, obviously, and rather than just winning a contract for a championship match, she won the championship. So interesting twist, and a good way to kind of segue the championship from Becky to Asuka without there having to be a match. And as much as people want to bitch and moan that, she was just handed the championship, well, no, she wasn't. She won a 6-person ladder match that was for the championship. Whether that was announced beforehand or not is irrelevant. The match was for the championship, so she legitimately won that championship. It was considered would have been considered a vacant title. So, and that title was contested in a 6-person ladder match. I don't see a problem with it. A lot of people online did. We'll get into that a little bit later. But some more kind of highlights from the Money in the Bank pay-per-view last week. It was originally listed there was supposed to be a Raw Tag Team title match between the Street Profits and Viking Raiders. That didn't happen, but we did get a couple of last-minute additions, and that was Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro and R-Truth versus Bobby Lashley. Actually, it was supposed to be R-Truth versus MVP, but Lashley came out and took his place. Kind of seeing hints at a little bit of a reunion of the Beatdown Clan from Impact. Now, that was MVP and Lashley were, the two main components of the Beatdown Clan. They also had Low-Key and I can't remember some of the other people that were in that particular group. I believe it was Kenny King. So kind of hinting at an alliance between Lashley and MVP in WWE the last couple of weeks, which I think would be cool. I mean, MVP seems to be transitioning to more of a manager / mouthpiece type of role, and I think for Bobby Lashley, who's not the best when it comes to promos, I think MVP would be a great fit for him as that manager / mouthpiece. If they're going to move him into some more serious type storylines, because I got to be honest, for me, speaking strictly for myself, I don't think Lana was the best fit with Lashley. I mean, yeah, the storyline with Lashley and Rusev and Lana and all that, it was entertaining. I mean, it was very soap opera-esque. And I don't have an issue with it, but I think if Lashley's going to move into some more serious type storylines, I think MVP would be the best fit for him, manager-wise. We also saw a little bit of a new entrance for Seth Rollins during the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, more along the lines of his, goes with his Monday Night Messiah persona. So I thought that was pretty cool. The men's and women's ladder matches were very entertaining. I was wondering how they were going to pull off both matches going on at the same time and happening in the in the WWE headquarters. And there was some really fun / funny / head scratching and surprising type moments. I mean, we saw appearances from Brother Love, Doink the Clown, Stephanie McMahon, Paul Heyman. We saw a food fight between the men and the women. We saw Shayna Baszler choke out Rey Mysterio. We saw Otis and Nia Jax kind of smash Rey Mysterio in between the two of them. John Laurinaitis made an appearance. We even saw AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan fighting into Vince McMahon's office, and of course Vince was there and kicked them both out and that kind of thing. We saw Baron Corbin throw Rey Mysterio and Aleister Black off the roof, quote unquote. Of course, they didn't actually plummet 10 stories. The story that they went with on Raw is that they fell onto a secondary roof, so only dropped a few feet. It was a very, very entertaining match. I liked it. It was obviously one of the cinematic matches that have been becoming a little more prominent lately, but I found it really entertaining. I thought it was pretty cool, and in the end, of course, as I just talked about, Asuka won the women's Money in the Bank match, which turned out to be for the Raw Women's Championship, and the winner of the men's Money in the Bank, surprisingly, was Otis. It ended up AJ Styles was actually the one who took the briefcase off of the hook, but ended up fumbling it and dropping it. Never had a clear grip on it, and Otis was the one to catch it and ended up being the winner of the Money in the Bank. So we'll have to see. I did mention last week it would be kind of interesting if Otis did win it and used it to cash in for the tag team titles, because that's just something that's never been done before. A lot of people, commenting on that online, saying how it would be a waste and things like that. I disagree. I think it would be cool to see it cashed in for something other than the WWE or Universal Championship. So we'll have to wait and see how Otis is going to use his cash in. Moving on to Monday Night Raw, they made an announcement. There's going to be a brand-to-brand invitation. Basically, not really the wild card rule making a comeback. Supposedly, this is only going to happen 4 times a year, but it's going to allow superstars to move back and forth between Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. So next week, as part of that brand-to-brand invitation, we've got Baron Corbin taking on Drew McIntyre on Raw. So it should be a pretty good match. We saw the return of the Iconics this past week on Raw. Kind of mixed feelings about that. I like the Iconics in the ring. I think they're both pretty good. Their characters, their personas, annoying, I guess, is the best word to come up with. But I think that's the point. I mean, they're doing their jobs. They're heels. Their job is to annoy people, to piss people off. So I can't really complain about that too much. If I'm annoyed by their characters, then they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're being effective heels. The Iconics did manage to defeat Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, who are the women's tag team champions currently. Now, this wasn't a title match, but I would think it probably puts them right up in title contention. And then we also saw kind of a disturbing spot with Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio fighting outside the ring. It was Rey Mysterio and Aleister Black taking on Rollins and Buddy Murphy, and Rollins and Murphy ended up getting disqualified, but Rollins kept beating on Rey outside the ring and basically shoved his eye into the corner of the stairs. Now, obviously, he's not really, Rey didn't actually lose an eye, but it was, just some disturbing imagery. We saw, Rey bleeding from under his mask, and, and we saw Rollins just really kind of looked out of it. I mean, didn't seem to be really all there by the look in his eyes, and part of it stemming from, it would appear, this is my take on it, part of it stemming from the loss he took the night before to Drew McIntyre, which they shook hands. McIntyre showed him respect and things like that after the match, but Rollins was the loser of that match, and then obviously finding out he's going to be a father, which I'm sure he knew well in advance of Monday night, but of course they're going to play on that a little bit in his storylines. So seemed to really not be himself completely. So I'm curious to see what we're going to see from Seth Rollins going forward, and But yeah, basically what happened, it caused him to kind of lose it and go crazy on Rey Mysterio, and left Rey Mysterio with an eye injury. Now, a lot of people are speculating that Rey's contract is coming up soon. He may be leaving WWE, and some of this stuff may be their way of just kind of writing him off of television. Getting thrown off a roof, getting his eye injured on the stairs, things like that. But that's all just rumor and speculation at this point. So we'll have to see where this is going to go. Moving on to NXT, we had an announcement from Shawn Michaels and Triple H that the next NXT TakeOver is going to be titled In Your House, kind of throwing it back to some old school WWE pay-per-view names. But it's going to take place on June the 7th. I would assume it's going to be from Full Sail. I don't think it's going to be any place with a crowd or anything like that quite yet. We talked about the match with Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher. Now, the way that came about was they had a tag team title match defending against Imperium, Fabian Eichner and Marcel Bartel. And in the middle of the match, Timothy Thatcher walked out on Matt Riddle, said, he's tired of Riddle's antics. And, Riddle is his character, he's a fun-loving guy, doesn't take life too seriously, that kind of thing. And Thatcher is kind of the opposite of that. Takes things very seriously, and just apparently got fed up with Riddle's antics, like I said, and walked out in the middle of the match. And as a result, Imperium are your new NXT Tag Team Champions. So, I'm curious to see where the NXT Tag Team division is going to go from here, because obviously Pete Dunne was the original partner of Matt Riddle. So once he's able to travel back to the U.S. and appear on NXT, what's going to be the situation? Is he going to also kind of turn on Riddle, and is there going to be a rivalry there? Are they going to team back up and try to get the championships back? There's a few different ways they could go, but Thatcher walking out on Riddle did result in a great match later on in the night for NXT, and Riddle was the winner of that match, but again at the end, Thatcher just kind of beat him down, took him out a little bit, so I'm sure that one's going to continue. Also in NXT, we saw a really, really good promo from Karrion Kross and Scarlett. It was a vignette type promo. Wasn't in the ring. The music that they used for the background was the "End Is Here" song, which was used for a lot of pay-per-views back in the day. Like Armageddon was used for numerous pay-per-views, but I think the one it was most known for was Armageddon. So I thought that was a really cool, just a cool twist on that promo. Then we also found out that Damian Priest is the one who took out Finn Balor a couple of weeks ago when Balor kind of disappeared from his locker room. He came out during a match between Balor and Cameron Grimes, basically ended up costing Balor the match, and then announced himself as the one who had taken Balor out a few weeks ago. So that is going to be a very good rivalry, I think, between Damian Priest and Finn Balor. I cannot wait to see some matches between these two guys. Then we saw another kind of dinner with the Gargano family type promo. Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae sitting at their table talking about some different NXT superstars, and pretty much called out Keith Lee and Mia Yim. Now, interesting to note, Lee and Yim are a couple as well. So that's not something that's ever really been talked about on air on NXT. So I'm wondering if that's going to kind of play into this at all, or if it's just going to be, straight up, Gargano and LeRae just calling out Keith Lee and Mia Yim. Keith Lee obviously still the North American champion, so I would not be surprised to see Gargano challenging for that title. And Candice LeRae and Mia Yim, I think, could have one hell of a rivalry too. So that should be fun to watch going forward with those four. Then moving into the interim cruiserweight championship tournament, the sides are becoming a little bit more clear now. In Block A, we've got Kushida sitting at 2-0. Tony Nese is pretty much eliminated. He finished out at 0-3. But then also in Block A, we've got Jake Atlas sitting at 2-1 and Drake Maverick at 1-1. So the last match for Block A is going to be Drake Maverick and Kushida. And now, if Maverick manages to get the victory over Kushida, that would, I believe, I'm not sure how the tiebreaker would work out, because if Maverick does get the victory over Kushida, then you've got Kushida at 2-1, Maverick at 2-1, and Jake Atlas at 2-1. So there'd be some interesting math to take place to figure out who moves on, unless they have like a triple threat match to determine the winner for Block A. Block B, we've got Swerve Scott and Jack Gallagher both at 1 and 2, pretty much mathematically eliminated. Then we've got Tozawa and Phantasma. Tozawa's at 2 and 0, undefeated so far. Phantasma's at 1 and 1. So again, we're going to have Phantasma and Tozawa to see who's going to move on to the final match for the interim cruiserweight championship. Talking about title tournaments on SmackDown, we found out this week that the Intercontinental title has been stripped from Sami Zayn, and they're holding a tournament to crown a new champion. Now, not 100% sure why they're crowning a new Intercontinental champion and not doing interim the way that they are with the cruiserweight title. Maybe they don't. Maybe they see that as too redundant, having two interim champions. I don't know. But moving on in the tournament this week, we saw Elias and Daniel Bryan both advance to the next round. And next week, we're going to have matches between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, and also Jeff Hardy versus Sheamus. Should be two fantastic matches right there. Kind of hard to believe they're doing that in the first round, but those are going to be some really good matches. Then some miscellaneous WWE news was reported this past week that Alberto Del Rio was arrested for sexual assault and just some really disturbing charges against Del Rio, and some disturbing accusations made by I'm assuming what was his significant other at the time. But yeah, I mean, go online, check out the reports, because I don't even want to say some of the stuff that he was accused of. And yeah, trouble just seems to follow Del Rio wherever he goes. So and if the accusations are true, the guy, he has no place anywhere in any type of sports, entertainment, anything. If it is true, he deserves to be sitting in a prison cell for a very long time. That's my take on it. Then some other interesting WWE news. After having a great match with Daniel Bryan on SmackDown as part of the Intercontinental Championship tournament, Drew Gulak is no longer part of WWE. He was reported that it was released, but then it was corrected to say that his contract expired. So apparently, they were in negotiations for a new contract, and this is just what's being reported online. So I, take it with a grain of salt. But the two sides couldn't come to an agreement on a new contract. I'm assuming it had something to do, financially is usually what the sticking point is on that kind of stuff. So yeah, Drew Gulak gone from WWE, and be interesting to see where he pops up next, because he is a fantastic in-ring performer. So he is not going to be a free agent very long unless he chooses to be. So keep an eye out to see where he pops up next, or he could pop back up in WWE. Who knows? They may come to some kind of an agreement, and he can pick right back up where he left off with Daniel Bryan. So we'll have to keep an eye on that situation, see what happens. Moving into some AEW news. An interesting little exchange on Twitter this past week between Sting and Lance Archer. Not a contentious type exchange, more of Sting kind of, giving props to Lance Archer, saying he's happy that he's getting the opportunity he deserves in AEW, and that was in response to Archer saying that, the one person he'd really love to get in the ring with would be Sting. So, of course, that started all kinds of speculation about Sting possibly being joining AEW in some capacity, and a lot of places reporting he's no longer under any type of contract with WWE, be it a Legends contract or anything else. So, of course, anytime two wrestlers from different companies interact online, it starts the rumor mill going. So until I see something from AEW or from Sting, I'm, gonna see it for what it is, just, two guys showing each other respect, and that's pretty much it. On Dynamite this past week, saw a bit of a brawl between Cody and Lance Archer. Of course, they're the final two competitors in the TNT Championship tournament, which that match is going to take place at Double or Nothing next weekend. This coming week, on the heels of that, regarding the same match, we're going to see a face-to-face between Arn Anderson and Jake Roberts, the respective managers of Cody and Archer. All right, somebody driving down the alley honking the horn. But, yeah, Arn Anderson and Jake Roberts, that should be a very interesting face-to-face because they are two of the absolute best on the microphone. You're not going to find two better promo guys in the history of wrestling than Arn Anderson and Jake Roberts. So to have them both in the ring, face-to-face, talking to each other, I will be... I would tune into Dynamite just to see that, because that is going to be an epic confrontation, even if it's not going to be physical. It'll be, like I said, two of the best promo guys in the history of the business getting ready to tee off on each other. We saw Chris Jericho take on the man he refers to as Pineapple Pete, Shug D, in kind of a quick match, but it was. I think it was just more about getting the spotlight on Shug D. I mean, Jericho has kind of keyed in on him the last several weeks when Jericho was on commentary. Like I said, calling him Pineapple Pete because he wears like the Hawaiian type shirts and things like that. So it was just. Yeah, it was entertaining, even though it was a very, very short match. And then after the match, Jericho challenged members of the Elite to what he's calling a stadium stampede. Basically, it sounds like they're going to fight all over Jacksonville Jaguars Stadium. Obviously with no crowd there, so should be interesting. After he laid down the challenge, he destroyed Vanguard 1, the drone of Matt Hardy, and of course Matt Hardy was very, very distraught over that. If you've been seeing his posts on social media since then, so the Elite did accept the challenge, so we should be seeing that at Double or Nothing as well. And it was also announced by AEW that Mike Tyson is going to be at Double or Nothing to present the TNT Championship to the winner of the match between Lance Archer and Cody Rhodes. So pretty interesting. I mean, Mike Tyson, no stranger to pro wrestling, but he's pretty much always been involved with WWE anytime he's made any wrestling related appearances. So to see him making an appearance for AEW, kind of interesting, because he is a WWE Hall of Famer as well. Moving on to some Impact news, a big week of signings for Impact. They signed Su Yung, aka Susie, to a contract extension. They also re-signed Crazy Steve, and Tasha Steelz is a new signee for the Impact Knockouts division. So Impact picking up some pretty good talent lately. Their Impact is holding a tournament of their own to crown a number one contender for the world title, and this week we saw Hernandez and Trey Miguel move on in that tournament. And so I'm curious to see exactly how this is going to play out, because Moose originally was supposed to be part of this tournament. Of course, he has declared himself the TNA World Heavyweight Champion and withdrew from the tournament because he says, well, I'm already a champion. I don't need to be in the tournament. So I think it's going to end up, some point down the line, we're going to see the TNA champion in Moose taking on the Impact champion, whoever that may be, at the end of this tournament. Impact still putting out some pretty interesting stuff. So like I always say, if you haven't watched Impact in a while, give them another shot. Check it out. They've been putting out a really good wrestling product the last couple of years. So give Impact another try. So that's going to do it for news and rumors for the week. So right now we are going to throw it over to Charlie G, and this is the Indie Cut.
Thank you, Tom, and hey to wrestling friends. I am Charlie G with your Indie Cut. Always happy to be a part of the show. There was some actual indie wrestling action this week, so let's get to it. With week 4 of AAA Live Empty Arena Lucha Fighter Tournament, the finale, the broadcast showed a better bracket this week. That made sense. Still not sure why it was so bad last week, or even why it wasn't shown before. We see Conan producing at home and predicting a night of Rudos. He sided with Chessman, LA Park, and La Hydra. The minis are both technical, so he hopes they hurt each other. So, first match was the minis. Dinastia defeated Laredo Boy. The top highlight early was a springboard corkscrew moonsault from Dynastia, and what I thought was a quick win by Laredo Boy with a twisting roll-up pin, and I even think Dynastia thought so too by the reactions. The match continued with a push-up challenge. Kind of funny spot. Dynastia was too quick in the end. He landed a silly string German suplex off the ropes, followed with a springboard twisting splash for a bridge win. Then in the men's semifinal, Psycho Clown defeated Chessman. The bout began with some ground and pound by both men. Chessman used a cookie sheet, of course, early on for early violence. Psycho came alive with a twisting crossbody and a cannonball off the ring post to the outside, which was a pretty cool spot. For the finish, Chessman missed a flying corkscrew, which he saw coming as a miss, and Psycho took advantage with a Code Red to win. In the next semifinal match, it was Pentagon defeating LA Park. Park attacked Pentagon before the opening bell on the outside, even whipping him with his belt. Of course, this is an LA Park normal thing. Back in the ring, Park and the ref even posed for the camera, acting a little too buddy-buddy, from whom seems to be one of the good referees. Referee shenanigans were early and often. The ref blocked Pentagon from punching with claims that it was a closed fist. Park accidentally punched the ref out of the ring. Pentagon hit them both with a tope con hilo, which is pretty sweet. As Pentagon put both men back in the ring, Park rode up on the ref's knee, so whenever Pentagon went for a cover, the ref had to stop, claiming his knee was in too much pain. When Park would try to pin, the ref would do quick counts. I'm guessing they missed their usual Rudo referee and Tirantes, but who knows during this time. Later, Park threw Pentagon onto the ref by accident and then unintentionally smashed him with an elbow drop. While the ref was down, Park kicked Pentagon low and tried for a quick win, only for Pentagon to get kicked out. Park became angry at the ref and pushed him into the corner. Pentagon struck him with a low blow as payback. The ref gave a fast recount, with Pentagon rolling him up for the win. Decent match, even though the referee was pretty one-sided, but still kind of cool between the two. Next up was the final women's match between Lady Shani and La Hydra. Hydra had an early advantage with a split-legged dropkick in the corner and a couple of foot chokes. Shani hit a nasty haluva kick on the bottom rope to gain some momentum back, and then putting on a variety of submissions. For the end, she did Oklahoma rolls around the ring and locked in a bow and arrow variation to earn a tap-out win in a nice match for the final. In translation, Shani cut a promo after her victory. She thanked everyone for watching. It was an honor to participate in the tournament. Winning is the start of big things to come. She misses all her mini fans, and they will be together soon. Then we see Conan disappointed without the technicals winning. If Pentagon wants to turn Rudo, Conan will welcome him back. So in the men's final, it was Pentagon versus Psycho Clown. A little different than what I predicted, but still Pentagon in the final. The match began with a handshake between the two. Kind of rare, but nice to see. Pentagon tried for a quick roll-up once Psycho turned his back. Both men landed corner moves and solid strikes. The match went to the outside when Psycho landed an apron DDT and even eventually used the cookie sheet on Pentagon, only to be woken up, and he used the cookie sheets. It went back and forth in the ring, both hitting signature spots. In the end, Penta kicked out of a Mexican destroyer. Psycho went for a flying splash, only to miss. Pentagon put on the snap armbreaker into a package pile driver for the win in a great match between two fan favorites. Pentagon grabbed the mic to point out how half the world cheers for Psycho, but the other half chants Zero Mado. Pentagon is bringing a new style as a technical. He recognized Psycho's skill. It was a privilege to compete against one of the best wrestlers in the world. Pentagon and Psycho shook hands out of respect. Psycho returned the favor to respect Pentagon's win. One more handshake to close the show. The tournament was nice change during these times, and even for AAA, having so many singles matches is different for me and probably different for them, but fun nonetheless. At least I picked the winner, Pentagon. I have no clue when they will be back wrestling in action, but I will let you know when they do. So now for the other indie wrestling action, all from Japan. On May 9th, DDT TV show number 2. The highlight matches are a right to challenge anytime, anywhere contract match with Akito defeating Yoshihiko in a DDT Iron Man heavy metal title match. Champion Danshoku Dino defeated Hiroshima, Kaigo Nakamura, and Somo Tako. In a hardcore match, Chris Brooks defeated Shinuma Katsumata. And in the main event for the KO'd openweight title match, Masato Tanaka of ECW fame, whose champion, defeated Yukoro Sakaguchi by TKO. I'm guessing that's how you have to win the match. Also on the 9th, Pro Wrestling Noah, GHC National Championship, Sugiura versus Nakajima. Highlights are the GHC Junior Heavyweight Tag Title match of champions Hayota and Yohei versus Kotaro Suzuki and Yoshinari Ogawa to a no contest. And the GHC National Title match, Katsuhiko Nakajima defeated champion Takashi Sugiura to become new champion. Then on May 10th, also for Pro Wrestling Noah, Stay Together Muda Fantasia, and then the GHC Junior Heavyweight Tag Title match that became vacant after there was no contest the previous night. Hayato and Yoshinari Ogawa defeated Tatsuko and Yohei to become new champions. After their first match of the night was a quick double countout. In the main event, it was the Great Muta and Marufuji teaming to defeat Kazushi Sakuraba and Masako Mochizuki. You can look up some highlights on their YouTube page, I saw. Then on May 15th, Dragon Gate King of the Gate Night 1. They're holding a tournament, so Kazai defeated HYO. Yamato defeated Ryu Shelto. Diamante defeated Dragon Kid. And Yosuke Santa Maria defeated Shishimu Yokosaka. Then DDT had a remote pro wrestling audience experiment match on Zoom. Yes, they had a match on Zoom somehow, with Yokoi Nayo defeating Keigo Nakamura. Then on the 16th of May, new Ice Ribbon Show 1041, also on YouTube. DDT TV show number 3. DDT Iron Man Heavy Metal title match of champion Dansuko Dino versus Antonia Honda to a no contest. And in a KO'd openweight title challenger sword match, Tetsuto Endo defeated Kazada Higuchi. All Japan Pro Wrestling Broadcast 2020 number 3. Kaya and Tajiri teamed again, defeating Black Mensori and Taiko Hamura for the All Japan World Junior Heavyweight title match. Champion Susumu Yokosuka defeated Hikaru Sato. And finally, Dragon Gate King of the Gate Day 2. Kayata Yoshida defeated Jason Lee. Finally, a name I can pronounce. Kazuko Akata defeated B Hulk. Kei defeated Genki Hiraguchi. And Naruku Daya defeated Big R Shim-Zero. Yeah, sorry about those names. As for YouTube viewing, look up Black Label Pro from May 16th, as they're doing WrestleMania Fire Pro Edition. Since there was some wrestling action this week and a heavy storm, I did not get to Lucha Underground. Sorry about that. Next week I will do episodes 5 and 6. Maybe 7 and 8. Well, we shall see how the week goes. That's a wrap for me. Till next time with any indie news or shows. Don't forget to look up those Twitch streams and YouTube channels, especially Ethan Page. He's pretty cool. And for other wrestling content, thank you for watching or listening. Hope you enjoyed the cut. Stay safe. Take care, everyone. And back to you.
All right. Thank you, Charlie, as always, for your contributions to the show. I cannot express how much I appreciate what Charlie does for the show here each and every week. And I hope everybody is enjoying his indie cut every week, because I definitely know I am. So let's move into the next segment of the show here, where I call out the douchebags and assholes online, and I am talking about the Troll of the Week. So this week's Troll of the Week comes from Facebook, and it is a person named Andrew Barr, B-A-R-R, and he was commenting in one of the wrestling groups that had posted the same news that everybody else posted this week about Becky Lynch stepping away from WWE to start a family. And of course, like so many other people online, he had something negative to say about it, saying that a champion who's leaving should always put over the next person and give them the rub, and Becky should have been taken out, and trying to sound like an intelligent wrestling fan who knows what he's talking about, and just ended up making himself sound like a complete fool. Saying that it's always the way it's been done since the territory days, and saying he's been a wrestling fan for 30 years. Well, I've been a wrestling fan for 37 years, and I beg to differ. Yes, that is the traditional way for a champion to go out of somebody, especially if they're leaving the territory, quote unquote, or something like that, or going to be leaving for an extended period of time. They'll drop the title, put the next person over, and things like that. But to say that that's always how it goes is just flat out wrong, because it doesn't always go that way. I mean, whatever the reason might be, you look back at, go all the way back to like when Stan Hansen left the AWA. He was the world champion. He didn't drop the title to anybody. He just walked out. Or, look at Seth Rollins when he had to give up the Universal title because he blew his knee out. Or Finn Balor because he broke or separated his shoulder and, tore his labrum and just tore his shoulder all up. There was no way he could have been taken out. I mean, in Becky's case, she's pregnant. That is instant no contact. They're not going to involve her in any kind of angle that's going to have any kind of physicality in it. I think the way the WWE went about it was exactly right. It was the best way that they could have given the situation. People complaining about Asuka being handed a championship. She wasn't handed anything. She won a 6-person ladder match for the championship, like I talked about earlier. The fact that it wasn't announced beforehand that it was for the championship is irrelevant. So she won a match for the title, period. And, just anybody who's complaining about about Becky Lynch leaving is just, there's no other word for it. It's just plain stupid. So, yeah, Andrew Barr is the one I'm singling out simply because, I responded to his comment, and I was respectful. I didn't, jump on him or say anything negative about him. I simply pointed out, it's not always done that way, because that was his big thing. You always put the next person over. Well, no, not every single time. Sorry. You look back throughout the history of wrestling, there's been plenty of instances where a champion had to leave for one reason or another, and the company, they got to do what they need to do to keep the show going. And I think the way WWE handled it was the best way that they could have given the situation, because and this Andrew guy kept going back to Stone Cold back in when he had to leave to have his neck surgery and that kind of thing. Well, he number one, he got run over by a car, and that didn't put anybody over. That didn't give anybody the rub. And then he's saying, well, Jericho always, put the next guy over. Well, how many times did Jericho leave as champion? Answer me that. He didn't. But it is what it is. I mean, this guy's trying to sound intelligent and like he has some type of inside knowledge of wrestling, and neither one is true. So that's that for the Troll of the Week. But moving on to the next part of the show, where I do some armchair arm dragging, as I like to put it, and I am talking about the Fantasy Booker. This week's Fantasy Booker, I'm going old school versus new school. I'm taking somebody who represents the pinnacle of pro wrestling in their particular generation versus one of the people who I think represents the current generation right at the top. And so the Fantasy Booker this week, I'm talking about Harley Race taking on Cody Rhodes. Now, Harley, of course, had some great matches with Dusty Rhodes back in the day, Cody's dad, and this would just be just a clash of generations. We're talking one of the top guys from the 1970s versus one of the top guys from the 2020s and 2010s. So, both guys could be called, I think legitimately could be called ring generals, fantastic in-ring workers. I don't care what anybody says about Cody Rhodes. He is one of the best in the business today. Not just because he's an executive and stuff like that, but, look at his in-ring work from Japan, from Ring of Honor, from WWE. And, especially in WWE, no matter what gimmick he was saddled with, he made the most out of it, and he made the most of whatever time he got in the ring. And, go back and really look at Cody's in-ring history. You're not going to find a bad match, in my opinion. And same thing with Harley Race. You're not going to find a bad match. So I think the two of these guys in the ring together, if it could have ever happened, and when I do these fantasy bookings like this, obviously I'm talking about both guys in their prime, at their peak, which for Cody I think is right now, and with Harley Race, obviously it would have been, in the 70s, early 80s when he was world champion. It would have been, this is a match that could have sold out a stadium, in my opinion. So, Harley Race, Cody Rhodes, that's this week's Fantasy Booker. So moving on into my final segment of the show here, kind of stating my not so popular opinions. I know this one is going to be not so popular with a very small but very vocal section of fans online, and I am talking about my weekly hot take. My hot take for this week: Jim Cornette is still an asshole. Okay, I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody, and I know, I retired little Jimmy from being the Troll of the Week, so as much as I may have wanted to, I couldn't put him in that position this week, but thank God for the weekly hot take. Like I said, a lot of people online had some really negative things to say about Becky Lynch vacating or giving up the Raw Women's Championship to go start a family, and Jim Cornette probably had some of the stupidest, most sexist, misogynistic, whatever word you want to use for it, things to say about Becky Lynch. It was just, honestly, it's embarrassing at this point. The man is a walking parody of himself. He will do or say literally anything online to get a reaction, and it just so happens a majority of what he says is, somehow degrading to women. That's typically, that's just, that seems to be his MO. And, this time he's talking about how Becky Lynch has given up $1 million or however much money she's making, and, her easy bake oven, as he refers to it, will still be working, for a long time to come. And this was, basically saying it's the wrong time, it's the wrong thing for her to do, to step away. Well, I don't know. It's, like I said, it's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. It's, and then on the heels of that, he added another comment talking about Dana Brooke, and basically just disparaging her looks and things like that for literally no reason. Honestly, none of these things have anything to do with Jim Cornette. None of his or anybody else's business, for that matter. The fact that Becky Lynch chose to share her pregnancy with the fans of WWE, we should feel privileged, because she didn't have to do that. It's nobody's business. It's not mine or yours or anybody else's business what is going on in her personal life. They could have just said, oh, Becky Lynch has vacated the title, and, Asuka's your new champion. The match last night was for the championship, and left it at that. And, they didn't have to let us in on what's going on. So, that was Becky, and I'm sure Seth had something to do with it, but that's their choice to share, what's going on in their personal lives with us. And for anybody, especially Jim Cornette, who supposedly is a legend in the wrestling business, I'm, day by day doubting that more and more, because, somebody who's supposed to be a legend should be a good representation of the wrestling business, and he is anything but. So, that's my hot take for this week. Jim Cornette's still an asshole, still a douchebag, and, little Jimmy and all his lamb chops, they're still, all his little lamb chops are still following blindly right along. Yeah, Jim, whatever. All of them are equally as bad, and I'm sure they would take that as a compliment, putting them all in the same boat. Well, somebody needs to put them all in the same boat and then poke a hole in it. But I'll leave it at that. So that's my hot take for the week. Jim Cornette needs to just go away. He just needs to disappear. Somebody needs to take his phone away. Stop. Take away his Twitter account and just fade away, please. Because he, at this point, like I said, he's become a parody of himself. And the stuff that he posts and says on his podcast is just embarrassing, and most of the time just completely ignorant of that's about all I can say about it. That's the nicest thing that I can say about it without just going off on a complete profanity-laden rant about little Jimmy. So we'll leave it at that. So that's going to do it for this week. Next week, the show is actually going to drop a day early. It's going to be out on Saturday. I will be giving my preview and predictions for the Double or Nothing pay-per-view from AEW. I want to make sure I get that out before the pay-per-view actually airs, which will be Saturday night. So I will be dropping the show next week sometime Saturday morning or afternoon. So keep an eye out for that one. So until then, again, thank you all for watching, listening, and subscribing on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any place else you find your podcasts. Make sure you're following on social media at CatchHookShoot on all platforms. Head to patreon.com/CatchHookShoot for all the bonus content, and ProWrestlingTees.com/CatchHookShoot for all your t-shirt needs. And if you ever want to drop me an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. So until next Saturday, thank you again, everybody, for tuning in every week. I always say I can't express enough how much I appreciate everybody who checks out the show and who's interested in what I have to say about the crazy world of professional wrestling. So thank you all very much for tuning in each and every week. Hope everybody is staying safe, staying healthy, doing what you need to do to protect yourselves and your family in these crazy times that we're living in right now. So with that, I am going to sign off. Hope everybody has a great week, and I will talk to you guys soon.